Hello, everybody, and welcome to a deck retrospective on Dexter Drake, our friend who unfortunately left us a tiny bit too soon. If you do not know, Eric and I, just finished, spoilers by the way, for Eric's blind run of Carcosa. We just finished Unspeakable Oath. And if we're doing a deck retrospective on an Investigator after Unspeakable Oath, you probably, watching at home, know what that means. That means that our good friend Dexter Drake, as I said, was unfortunately lost at sea. He did not make it out of the asylum in a very flavorful, fitting way, where you had a straitjacket, drawing the sign, clasp of the black onyx, and then two hidden weaknesses in your hand. So, it was just like a perfect storm of getting stuck. And on top of that, you also delved too deep.
I delved too deep, and then drew the auto-fail on my last attempt to fight.
It really actually came down to that auto-fail, and actually in my head, too, when it was happening, I was like, if Eric draws an auto-fail here, Eric is stuck in this asylum forever. And I just was like, is it going to happen? And then it happened, and I was like, Eric doesn't know it, but Dexter's journey is done here. So, we're going to do a deck retrospective. Eric can talk about Dexter, and then I also can give some further insight on Dexter as well as we go. So, Eric, I'll let you take it away.
Well, so first with Dexter, I just wanted to say I had fun, but he was not my favorite character I've played so far. I obviously went from Stella to Dexter, which I have heard was going to always be a bit of a step down. But I didn't learn how to play him well enough, I think, by the time Dexter was dead.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get a better focus on this.
Oh,
you keep
do
talking.
it. Take your time.
I'm going to take us into this one while you're doing that. Go for it, even though your head's kind of cut off.
So starting with Down the Rabbit Hole, this was one of Justin's pieces of advice for me. Just a great way to upgrade faster, which I ended up seeing a lot of value from. Probably the most important card in my deck, I would say, just for what it was able to do and how quickly it was able to propel me forward.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm really starting to understand that this game has a lot of focus on deck building tech and planning ahead for your deck building tech. So I'm excited now to jump into my third character and really give it a shot to kind of play with that and to try and see if I can figure out a way to deck build a piece of tech. So that's kind of like a personal challenge I've given myself.
I mean, it's also one of those things too, like if you look back at my second campaign, which was actually, my Blind of Carcosa was my third campaign I've played. Because after we finished a campaign, we were waiting for the next one. We usually did a rerun of it. Deck building in this game is very hard. Oh, yeah. There's so many moving pieces. And then you look at, the Harvey deck I'm playing. This was, it takes a long time to, be able to, see a deck come together with that kind of, plan for it. But I do think, it's important for you to see and be like, my decks can do more, and I want my decks to do more than just this. I do think Dexter his stats are good, and he's an easy character to understand. But I think he's a hard character to play very well. I think, I even have this problem with Dexter where I feel like I don't use his ability enough. And I say this all the time in our videos. Bryn does a really good job of always using Dexter's ability to the point where I feel like I'm leaving Dexter on the table, some of them on the table. And I imagine you were feeling kind of similar, that you just weren't using him you felt like the full potential that he could have been used for. And I think that's very fair because that's something I even still feel when I play Dexter Drake.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what the description and the feeling was.
Let's get him out of this glary sleeve.
Yeah,
there we go.
Let's get him on the table. You know what, I could just unsleeve these as I go then.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So right. I've stacked my deck now from least important cards to most important cards in my experience, and I'm really excited to have this kind of as a back and forward about that. So first off, the card I'm putting down is Liquid Courage. So I drew Liquid Courage once in all three of my campaigns for the most part. And the moment I had it in my hand, even though I needed some horror healing, it was too slow. It was not useful for other things that I felt like I could have been doing with an asset. And I just felt that in my Dexter Drake card, it was more filling an asset slot than it was anything else as just a 0 cost, potentially 1 cost asset.
So some things about Liquid, so this is actually also the upgraded Liquid Courage. So some things about this is that you know those turns where you were like, I guess I'm going to draw a card? Those turns probably are better spent, like, using a liquid courage,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
The other thing, too, is the reason you only saw it once is because you only had one of it, right? Where generally, like, I will run 2 ofs for most of my cards unless I have, like, plans for them. Like, for example, this card in my Harvey deck, I'm only running as a 1 of because I don't need this effect multiple times. And you could argue, yeah, you don't need that effect multiple times, but it also has inherent synergy with Dexter's ability, right? If you take a turn to play Liquid Courage down, that means that your Brand of Cthulhu you draw later is now 1 resource cheaper and also fast, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's where, like, the Liquid Courage comes in. Because I do agree, like, it's not great healing. And it feels kind of bad to use. But it has that extra synergy with Dexter Drake where you want to be, like, using it for his ability in addition to the card, if that makes sense.
I believe it completely. I think for me, if the game had gone on, I would have probably either put another Liquid Courage in or ended up doing something like that. I was discovering, too, though, with Dexter Drake, with the way that you mulligan and the way you want a card draw to at least have 1 spell in your hand, a card like this just didn't have the same level of appeal as I thought it would.
I will also say, in addition to all this, that in 2-player Mystics, there's a lot more pressure to get things right. Because, like, with a Guardian with a melee weapon, it's, if you miss, it's okay, because you're just going to go again. With a Mystic with a spell, as soon as that spell's out of charges, you're like, I need to find something else or we are going to lose, right?
Which is exactly where I was in our final game as well.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, I'm sitting on 4 charges on this Cthulhu, and I know how that works. That's 1 round of combat, effectively.
Yeah, so I can definitely see why it, like, didn't, like, show up for you. But I do think that, like, it has, like, some, like, deeper Dexter synergy, which I think is, like, harder to... You really need to, like, play it a few times to get there, I think.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Faustian Bargain. I think I played this card wrong. In my experience, I would draw them in my opening hand, and I would look at the value of 5 resources versus adding the 2 chaos tokens to the bag. And I'd be like, this is not worthwhile doing at the beginning of this campaign.
And actually, probably, yeah, you probably could just on the first turn, just play it. Because that 5 resources, you can divvy it up between us. You can be like, hey, Justin, do you need anything? And those 2 curse tokens, while scary, are going to be eaten up by me doing investigate actions because I do them all the time. Yeah. And when I'm usually up by 6, it doesn't matter for them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a bad card by any stretch. I think I was too afraid to use it because I was like, oh no, I'm going to fill the bag with chaos tokens. And then I just didn't use them, and then I would regret it. Because then I'd draw this card later in the game when I had like 11, 12 resources, and I'd be like...
Yeah, no, I think like... It's a good card to keep in a mulligan, because mulliganing is still something you're probably like, what am I looking for, right? And if you just do that on turn 1, you're probably going to be set for, like, you're going to set the 2 players up. And the 2 curse tokens won't matter in the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next card, Ritual Candles. I liked Ritual Candles, but I found anytime I put it out, other than as a 1-drop asset, I either was getting good draws from the Chaos Bag, or the +1 didn't matter, because I was already winning by so much, that the negative effect on the cards was just going to hit anyways. This is a weird card to me, because it feels like when you are winning really big, like our Harvey and Dexter deck were doing whenever we were doing our checks, it's not adding any value.
Yeah.
And it's when you're more on the fence, it's going to have some extra value.
That is true. Like, the effect of it matters more for investigators who aren't, like, going to 1 million, right? Because you're testing at, like, 9 with your brain for most of it. However, it does have the Dexter synergy, 1 cost item, right, that you can just swap through. And a slot you're, like, rarely using. So, like, that's where it is. We always say, like, Ritual Candles is not, like, a card that's going to change your life, but it is just a fine card for, like, what you get out of it. But...
Oh, yeah. And that's all I used it for. I would put it in play just so that I would have an asset set up for the Dexter Drake play.
Yeah. Why is the focus on this camera cursed? I'm telling you.
Cursed. The King in Yellow's like, this one's mine. Stop talking about the deck.
Yeah. Go for it.
So, Deny Existence. I think Deny Existence is a really, really good card. I just had bad luck with it. Every time I had it in my hand or needed to hold it in my hand, events would happen that weren't technically under the purview of Deny Existence. I think especially if I had upgraded Deny Existence earlier, because then the level up of Deny Existence looks
very powerful.
So good.
It's very powerful.
And would actually have been really useful to play. It would have been stronger for me. It would have offered some really potentially good healing, some really potentially good card draw, but just holding this in my hand and waiting for it often ended up costing me spaces or caused me to throw away cards, thinking maybe I should keep this instead when I should have had something else. Because like in the mission that killed Dexter Drake, I chose to hold on to some Deny Existences when I had a sword cane. Because I was overvaluing the cancel effect over what a sword cane actually adds in terms of value just by keeping it in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, like, Deny Existence is a very powerful ARKHAM card. The 5 cost version is great, but, like, say, for example, you did upgrade to it sooner, you wouldn't have, like, your Brand of Cthulhu's, your Shriveling.
Yeah.
You need to do your base before you do your Gravy. It's one of those things where, like, you don't need Deny Existence until you need it. Yeah. And then when you need it, you're like, thank God it's here. Right, it's still like definitely worth the slots, especially like when you're like the first time you use it, you're like the game's like take 3 damage. You're like no, like that's something you're like I'm never gonna stop that drug. The other thing that's really good about it is using it for enemy attacks, right? Because it also does those, which allows you to set into positions, especially as Dexter Drake, to like move into a location with an enemy, get hit by that enemy, and then be like no, and then kill that enemy.
Yeah, that's
it like
totally
basically
fair.
like saves you an action in a way.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. And I if I ever play a Mystic Fighter again, I'm definitely going to take it again. But I just didn't get a chance to experience it.
Yeah, definitely.
Fearless is kind of in a different boat to Deny Existence, where Fearless I actually did play a couple of times, and I don't like it.
Oh yeah.
It's fine. It's okay.
I mean, like, skill cards generally, I'm high on skill cards. I like skill cards a lot. Cards like Fearless is basically like, hey, pass a test and heal a horror.
Yeah.
But they don't replace themselves, and you're going to need to know that you want it. And I think in the Dexter deck, you probably don't need it, right? So, like, it's probably not an absolute necessity to you. But, like, if you are taking a lot of horror, or if you had more trauma at the beginning of the game, Fearless's value shoots up. Yeah.
I also think, too, that Fearless lost some of its ability because when Harvey started being able to heal horror and you got so good at doing it, I was just like...
Yeah. In that case, that's an easy one. Like, the thing that sucks about Down the Rabbit Hole is that you can't, like, pivot out of a card.
Yeah.
And that was, in that situation, when Harvey turned into the machine that he was, pivoting out was probably the right choice. But Down the Rabbit Hole makes that harder. Oh, poor Power Word.
I did not
Did you even play these?
I did not play Power Word ever at any point.
Yeah.
Except as a book once, I think, to help you. I think Power Word has some really cool upgrades.
It has a high ceiling. It has a very powerful ceiling.
Yeah.
The problem is with Power Word is that you need to like build your deck around it. It's not a card you can like put in for fun and then like just be like, I'm gonna have fun with this at level 0. You need to put like experience into it like ASAP.
And I didn't do that, and I felt it. Every time I would look at my card for Power Word, I'd be like, this could have been useful at a point.
Yeah. No, I think that's very fair. Yeah,
I think Power Word was a dud in my deck.
Yeah, and I think that's less because of Power Word, more the fact that just like, this wasn't the deck for Power Word.
No, exactly. I think it's a great card. I think I would actually love to one day build something around it. But,
yes, me too. I want to build an actual deck around Power Word.
Yeah.
I think that's a very fair assessment.
We're starting to get into some of the like more mid-level cards now, cards that didn't feel bad.
Well, this one has to be in your deck anyway. So.
Yes, it does. But I just wanted to mention that Showmanship, because it says, while resolving a triggered ability on that asset, it tripped me up so many times because I was like, oh, now's the perfect time. I'm going to play this ability, and then I'm going to play an asset card that has no triggered ability. Brain break.
Yeah, I mean, like, all of your like, this is for using, like, your spells, your sword cane, your liquid courage. You can't play ritual candles with it.
Nope.
No.
And oftentimes, by the time I got this card, just because there is only one in the deck, I'd already have those cards out, so I couldn't... Like, I would have to have done, like, a bunch of, like, 2 turns to get some value out of it.
Yeah.
Like, would I have done that? Sure. Did I need to? I didn't. Ceremonial Sickle. I liked this card. This card had the bizarre effect briefly of making me not need to play my spells. And I really liked it. It felt pretty weak at the base level power. But it was good. It was a good card.
I think the card is pretty bad outside of Dexter. Even in Doom decks, mostly just because Dexter can like use it to kill some things and then turn it into something else, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, because like the numbers on it aren't great. I don't think it's like it's like one of those things you're not using this like often to try to get the 2 damage on it, which is funly, and you're like, why would I play a weapon when you don't want to get 2 damage on it? And I think that's entirely fair. But in Dexter, you can actually repeatedly get the 2 damage and then just turn it into a shriveling, right?
Which is exactly what I did.
Yeah.
So it was fun and kind of meh.
Yeah.
Living Ink. Living Ink, I think, is an amazingly good card. I really wanted to play more with it. I really wanted to start upgrading it and doing a bunch of weird stuff with it. I first took Subtle Depiction. It felt really good. I really liked that. Living Ink is the start of like cards I just liked.
Yeah.
I loved Living Ink.
I think Living Ink's a great card. I think it's awesome in Dexter because it costs 0, and when it's empty, you can turn it into something else.
Yeah.
And then we start getting more on it. It's like 0 cost for a lot of skill boost. Yeah.
My only question with it is if Living Ink has no charges, discard it. So you have to discard it when you've got that 1 charge left.
No. So at the start of your turn, so you get 2 turns with it basically, because at the start of your turn you remove a charge. So you play it, you have it that turn. Next turn you remove a charge. Next you get 3 turns, and then the last turn, at the start of your turn, when you remove the last charge, it gets discarded.
Yeah.
So when there's 1 left, it stays, but as soon as the turn starts with only 1 left, it goes away.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that's why I loved it with Subtle Depiction as well was I was just like, I'm just gonna hold on to this 0 cost asset until I have something to burn with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was good.
And the nice thing about Subtle Depiction as well, for people who play at home, I said this to Eric. It counts it during because at the start of your turn, you may choose to like ignore its text. You still get all the effects in the Mythos phase, which is really nice.
Really sick. So yeah, Living Ink is the start of my cards I liked. Poor Arcane Initiate. Almost never saw play just because I got bad draws on her. I really liked her. Being able to delve for spells was, even though I had Justin had to remind me.
Yeah.
Just having a 1 cost asset that does something that you do want to recycle or you want to feed damage onto her to get that doom off the table.
Yep.
Always having an out to be able to do that with Dexter.
Yeah, with Dexter. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, and being able to just look for more spell cards.
Yeah, definitely.
Everything I like.
Yeah, no. She's very good. She's played in like a lot of Mystic decks because Mystics play a lot of spells. I think because you only had 4 spells in your deck, right? 2 Shrivelings. Yeah, I think if you had more spells, she would have gone up in value. But even then in Dexter, I think like you don't need a lot for her to be good because like she just turns into something else.
Yeah.
If need be.
She was great.
Yeah.
Sword Cane. I really like Sword Cane. I barely got to use it in all of its cool, amazing glory, but the one time I did, it felt amazing. I can see why it gets put into so many Fighting Mystic decks. It's great that it fills a hand slot instead of a spell slot, so you've got that too. It pumps that extra attack. It gives you evade, which is something I felt like I never had, which was really great. Yeah, I like this card.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah, the one thing I'm noticing is definitely, I think for your next deck, you should try to not do any 1-ofs.
Yeah.
Just to see, because like that's the thing, right? Like, because like you see, like with all these things, it's hard to see the extra versions of them, and it makes sense, right? Because like your deck's 30 cards, you might not see them all, especially when you don't have a lot of draw power. Like me with my Harvey decks, I see the cards I want when I want to see them.
3 times.
Yeah, but like especially with Dexter, where there's not a lot of card draw, because that's actually Mystics. They don't have good card draw in their deck. They have good tutoring, but you still have to find your tutoring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Dexter does have some fun things that decks can do with Sword Cane.
Oh, yeah. And I immediately wanted more Sword Cane than I wanted of this card.
Spirit of Thame.
So Spirit of Thame was great. I think I should have either taken Sword Cane or Spirit of Thame, but not both.
And I'm pretty sure Spirit of Fame was your last point in the thick of it, right? I think because you took 2 Brandicathugas and then the Spirit of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think next time I either would have dropped Sword Cane entirely and just focused on Spirit of Fame, or dropped Spirit of Fame and focused on Sword Cane. Because using Spirit of Fame felt great when it was properly lined up. When I had it out, I had the spell out, and I was just like, I'm shooting for the moon.
Yeah, Spirit of Fame's a weird one where it's kind of existed for a while, but it's never really had like a home. Dexter's probably like Dexter has the stat line to potentially make the best use out of it, but it still just feels a little bit strange. Because like Dexter doesn't really need the +2 spell.
No.
It's interesting.
What's nice about it, I will say, is that anytime I had it out with a spell, I felt less worried about completely running out of charges because I could bump my fight up to 5, which was in Carcosa so far.
And that's very true. Like that's why I say Dex is probably one of the better uses of it, because you can get to 5 fist and kill something small that isn't worthy of a charge.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Uncage the Soul, once more, another one of that I had. I really wish I had been running 2 of these.
Yeah, it is great. Just good economy.
When it's in your hand and you've got nothing, it sucks. Except that it's 2 brain.
It's still a guts. It's still a guts.
Yeah. So I loved it.
2 brain, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like, I can see why you put it as a 1-of, because when you only have 4 spells in your deck. But, like, more spells will mean more juice in the future for a card like this.
And as we learned from Harvey,
juice is good. It's all about the juice.
I love Delve Too Deep. Delve Too Deep is the type of gameplay I like.
Yeah, it killed you, but it was a worthy death. It was like an honorable death.
It was. I love it. It's so dumb.
It's a good card. And like Eric right now is in the high point of Delve Too Deep, where you're actually delving in the middle of the scenario. But it's funny, you delved in the end of the scenario and it got you killed. So maybe now you're going to delve on turn 1. You're like, we got to get the problems out immediately.
Everyday delving.
Yeah.
I loved it. Ward of Protection, 2 upgrade.
Yeah, good card.
So good.
I mean, you did save you saved our lives with it once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved this card. I don't remember if there was a further upgrade with it, but if this card had better versions, I would keep upgrading it.
There is a better version. There's a level 5 version.
I want it.
It doesn't stop from other investigators. It just stops any card, so it can defeat an enemy when you draw it. But like the level 2 version is really nice because you can protect other people.
Yeah.
All right, before we get to this next card, we just have to pause and say, hey, Travis. And now you can play the card. Yeah. Watch this. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah, I don't think Eric ever missed on it. It feels bad when you miss and lose 3.
Yep, I never missed.
No.
I made money hand over fist.
You turned a 2 into a 4 and 3 into a 6 a lot of times. You made a lot of money on the watch thises.
Yep, and it was a good card to be able to throw any of those symbols in. There was even a few times where with the Spirit of Fame in this, I was like, do I dare play truly risky?
Yeah. I mean, I think Watch This is incredibly good in Dexter. Mostly because you have 5 brain and it cares about brain. When you look at other rogues who have like 1 or 2 in brain, and you look at the brain on Watch This and you're like, this shouldn't even be here, right? But like in Dexter, and you're using your brain for everything, it's gonna trigger and it's always gonna make you tons of money.
It made me piles of money.
It did.
I gambled every time and I never lost.
I mean, as you should. I do the exact same thing with Watch This. Shriveling.
Shriveling was just good.
Yeah, good kill spell.
Good kill spell. I didn't like taking damage from it, but...
That's the downside of being a mystic, right? Your spells have to have a balancing act to them because in theory, they're powerful. In theory, I say. I think they're kind of shitty, but in theory... in theory, they're powerful, so there should be a downside.
Speaking of powerful...
Okay, so I have to just say, I've never seen someone hit as much as they have with you on this. Like, I think this card... I mean, I don't think the card's bad, because it's basically just like an alternative to Holy Rosary, just with card draw instead of this. But, like, of everyone I've seen playing it, you've hit the most out of it.
I was keeping track, and I think I hit about 60 to 70% correct guesses
which is
with
good.
It.
That's, like, really high.
When I even remembered to do it. I was drawing so many cards off of this by just guessing numbers. Mm-hmm. And I was watching Justin do math, being like, that's a bad guess, that's a good guess. And then I would just say it and get more money.
Yeah.
Or get more juice, that I honestly stopped using it because I was already at my hand max.
Yeah, no, it was very... The Crystal Pendulum was on your side.
I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, was that your favorite card in your deck?
Favorite card. So Justin says Mystic Spells suck.
This is the exception.
This card.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to know why Branded Cthulhu doesn't suck?
Why?
Because you don't spend the charge if you miss.
Yeah.
The downside of it is very bad. If you ever do the succeed by 0 on your first action, you're suddenly like, wait a minute, this card has a downside.
Yeah.
Right? But it is 3 damage if you succeed. It's basically just 9 guaranteed damage. When you compare it to Shriveling, which is the potential for 8 damage, but if you miss, you lose that damage. Branded Cthulhu is 9 guaranteed damage.
It's 9 guaranteed damage. It is action loss, potentially, which is scary. But, like, again, playing Dexter Drake, I'm at 5. I'm up 2.
You're very, like, it's
I'm
so
Crystal
rare.
Penduluming to 8.
Yeah, it really only happens usually against boss monsters where it really sucks. But, like, it can happen. So just, like, it doesn't seem like it could, but it actually could be a problem. So just be aware of it. It's too, like, Branded Cthulhu is probably my most played card from this expansion.
Yeah.
Because it's just that damn good. It's actually one of those things, because it's a Guardian card. Guardians can play it. Usually you build like you have like a Bandolier, which holds an off weapon. Now you just play Branded Cthulhu, and it's like your extra gun. Yeah.
I love it.
So you said that you enjoyed Dexter less than Stella. Was that just because the gameplay loop of Dexter was a bit more complex than Stella in terms of like being able to achieve the most of the character?
I think so. I think it was also, to be honest, some of my choices in the deck building. I think by putting so many one-ofs in and by not being like, okay, I'm going to hard focus on Dexter's power, or I'm going to hard focus on this concept of like constantly burning spells and replacing them, because I only took the 4 attack spells.
Yeah. You felt like it just wasn't lived up to the full potential of what it could have been.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was largely on me.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, this is the story of my life, especially starting off. There's a lot of times I look back and I was like, that was a bad deck that I built. Like, I remember my first Patrice deck, who is a survivor character that is quite complex to wrap your head around. I was just like, that was a bad deck. I had a bad time. So it happens. It's part of especially because I said, like, the game's so advanced and the card pool's so big that it's, like, hard to, like, especially because you're not, like, piecemealing. We're not like, hey, we're going to only play with Carcosa and Dunwich. I'm giving you the whole thing to play with because, it's more fun. It's more fun. It's harder to learn, but it is more fun.
Yeah, so mostly what I learned from Dexter Drake is that I like gambling, and I will gamble myself to death.
So you're going to have to play a new fighter for the next one. So I'm interested to see who Eric chooses, because it's probably going to be a Guardian or a Rogue, I'm going to wager, because like those could play a Survivor too, but you probably don't want to do Survivor again. You probably want to just keep going through the classes, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that should be fun. There's a lot of good Guardians and good Rogues for combat. So it should be fun.
I'm excited.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Apologies if this spoiled that Eric died in the asylum, but I mean, it is coming out after that video, so hopefully, it's not too much of a spoiler for you. But tomorrow on the channel, we're gonna see who Eric's new investigator is. So if you're curious about that, make sure to check it out as we take on Phantom of Truth, which is a very fun scenario, and Path to Carcosa. See you all then. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, and as always, the GGs.